Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Okay, Dr. Cannedy, I think your audio is working.
I think
Good.
here.
All right. And you can start whenever, if you want to start early, you can, so we can make sure we get any questions answered.
Sure.
If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat, or once Dr. Cannedy is done speaking, you can definitely ask him by unmuting yourself.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hopefully, we can have a free flow of question Q&A here, where if anybody has anything that you want to ask me, or if you want to share a discussion with others in their areas of expertise and support you want to give, let's go for it.
I have a question related to admissions.
Yes, go for it.
So I completed my bachelor's degree 13 years ago, and there are a few vet schools that don't require me to retake the classes. But I want to know, would you suggest that I retake some of the science classes to prepare for the program?
It depends on you. I mean, if you've taken the prerequisites and you feel comfortable and ready to, get yourself back into the deep end, if it's been 13 years, don't hesitate to do something to prep yourself, because you talk to Alexis or any of the other current veterinary students, they'll tell you that that first year, I think they give it an analysis of like drinking from a fire hose. So I see we have a couple of other current first year, now second year veterinary students. I'm sorry about that, Alexis. You guys have moved on. So let me give you your props. You are now in the deep end of the second year. So whatever you feel, you know yourself better than anybody else. So if you're feeling that, maybe taking a harder core science course, comparative anatomy or something like that, to kind of get yourself back into the groove, to help you get your mojo back on for studying and time management. And I think that's the biggest challenge that I hear from the majority of our veterinary students that they face. It's not necessarily the difficulty of the coursework. It's just a matter of balancing your time to be able to successfully do all those courses at the same time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Question from Chelsea Drungle, who is also a second year at NC State. She said, how do you handle being a Black person in food animal medicine? I know a few minority upperclassmen at my school have mentioned that they have been turned away from food animal medicine as people of color.
Yeah, great question and point. I mean, what I've done myself is just be prepared to deal with pretty much anything that anybody throws at you. How do you do that? Well, you just stay true to yourself, knowing who you are and what you stand for and what you're about. You have to have some level of confidence, shall I say. I mean, you're going to definitely be competent if you get a degree from a veterinary school. Any veterinary school is going to provide you the skills that you need to have to go out there and do the work. It's just you got to display the confidence when you're going to your clients that you know what you're doing, you know what you're saying, and do those things that show them that you're the professional that you are. And I can promise you that when it comes to food animal clientele, they're a little bit different clientele than your typical companion animal client. There are not a lot of us that are willing to go out there and do large animal and do food animal in the field, especially when it's North Carolina summer weather like it is right now. So people are thankful to have anyone, whether it's an underrepresented minority come on their property to help them, or a female, or anyone from any background, really, to provide them the services that they need in their times of need. So that's, I'd say, in a lot of ways, a big plus for anyone that wants to do large animals. Just that thankfulness that the food animal, large animal, particularly clients, have for your willingness to come out and help them, especially in their times of need. But you showing again your level of comfort and confidence in yourself as a trained expert to do the work that they're calling upon you to do is really what speaks the largest volumes. They'll call you back. I've had clients that I, hadn't had a certainty that, okay, you want me to come back, or you're going to handle just taking care of this routine thing that I'm recommending that needs to be done as a follow-up potential care situation for an animal. And you'd be surprised at how many times they'll say, no, doc, I'd rather you come back and do it. I'd rather pay you, to come back and do that instead of me doing it. And it could be something just as simple as a routine foot trim on an animal that the client really would prefer to have you and your expertise there to take care of. Hopefully that answers your question there, Chelsea.
Yes, I think it did for sure. So Marquise Harper, who actually went to A&T with me, he said, how do you see vet med changing for current or incoming vet students when it comes to grades and exposure with the coronavirus?
A great question, Marquise. I can tell you that a lot of schools right now are looking at how are we going to, number one, uphold things like honor code, because a lot of your tests are going to be take home, and obviously you can do what your classmates and everybody else, what they feel they need to do to be successful. So yeah, we're looking at those things and trying to decide if what courses can we shift to potentially make pass fail versus ones that are grade oriented. And I personally am supportive of that. I mean, I really want our students coming through our program that I teach to really get the material first and foremost as their top priority, and you'll be able to go out and be competent practitioners. So you've done and shown us already upon getting admitted into the program that you are a smart enough person to be able to do the work and obtain the knowledge that we expect and know that you have to in order to be competent and qualified to do the work. The question that I would flip back from what you're asking is, what is it that you are getting out as students, especially out of the program, or not getting from us that we need to address that's going to make you feel prepared to pass that NAVLE exam? Because we're going to teach you everything we can and provide you some sort of feedback on how we feel you're doing in the program. But then you're going to have to face the national board exams to really take that last test of, all right, whether we're going to give you the privilege to be able to go out there and do this stuff actually on your patients and service your clients that you want. So it's going to be interesting with COVID, and what we're trying at NC State versus what some other vet schools may try to do. We may learn from each other and find out that something that works for us may not work at another place. So, or we have to find different styles to present this material to meet all of our different learning styles that students have to make sure they're getting it right so that they can follow their dreams to do whatever it is that they're planning on doing in vet med. Long-winded response, but did I answer your question, Marquise?
I'm sure it did.
You're muted there, so it didn't catch you.
But yeah, I like that you flipped that question, Dr. Cannedy, because I think it's important that, as students, that when emails are sent about, what our feedback is, like I know Dr. Nelson at NC State, she's always constantly asking for our feedback, like, how can we make this better? How can we do good and do justice for you guys as things are starting to change? And that is your time to speak up and use your voice to say, this is what we are looking for since things are changing due to COVID. So never be fearful to express what you would like to see in change of curriculum. If you feel like this might work out for the benefit of the entire veterinary community, of your class, whomever. So yeah, definitely taking that time to just fill out those surveys or that feedback is highly important for the changes that we're starting to see right now.
Every week we have a forum, platform, and opportunity that we're doing throughout this summer, and and we'll continue it as long as COVID's doing its nasty thing to us. For our students, for our faculty, for our staff, we even have a separate one on Wednesdays from 12:15 to 1:15 for our Black students, faculty, and staff to join in on to discuss any issues of concerns that they may have revolving our college community's needs. And COVID is one of those things that we talk about. How is that affecting everybody's lives, and for our staff, obviously, and their work life that they have within our college. So, but students expressing their concerns are things that we're obviously needing to hear. And thank you for bringing that question out, Marquise, because again, we need to know how what it is that we're doing is affecting you all, and how's it working? Is it working or is it not? Let's see, looks like more questions popping in there.
Yes, Dr. Behan, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but she had two questions. The first question being a statement made by Angela Davis that she pointed out that diversity inclusion is of no use if a society hasn't changed, and that we must emphasize the need to transform society. How can we transform veterinary medicine to no longer uphold white supremacy/whiteness as it currently does?
Well, yeah, that's a tall order, and that's a great question. I can tell you as a practitioner, for me, I think my actions speak louder than my words in the services that I provide to my clients. And you're all gonna at some point run into that situation where you have that person that's gonna walk in, see you, and ask, "Where's the vet?" And you're the vet standing there, clearly in front of them, that they just don't want to accept or believe that a person of color could potentially be in the position that you are. So again, it goes back to some of what I was answering with Chelsea's question. You need to just demonstrate your abilities as a professional that you are, and your confidence in yourself, and try to not, it can be hard, not pass judgment the way that the individual may be passing judgment on you back. You hear that you have to kind of love folks into liking you sometimes, and that's really a reality, is that you have to be above the standards that the average person has in your position as a professional that you are. And I try to educate them, provide them an education in a way that maybe they have had in some ways that was on the negative side. So flip it, make sure that it's coming across in a positive way to help them. I always share the story of one of my most educational life experiences I ever had was when I got called out on an emergency call on a Sunday to go euthanize a dog that was dying of cancer out in the middle of North Carolina, in an area that is known to have a lot of racism. I showed up, pulled up at the farm where there was a big Confederate flag flying at the end of the driveway. There was a person that showed up with a van that was drunk, that had a Confederate flag in the back of it, and asked me to follow him down a long dirt road to a house that I had no idea what would be waiting for me. But we got there, my technician and I, and there was the owners of this animal sitting in the front yard on a blanket with their dog that needed to be euthanized. It was dying of cancer. So here I and my white female technician did our job, putting this dog down, euthanizing it. The owners paid us. As we were leaving, there was a big cross out in the middle of the field that was draped in burlap, which I didn't share this part of the story, but 2 weeks before I went out on this call, we had 3 crosses burned in Durham, North Carolina. So, my technician, when she saw that, she told me, she said, "If I saw that when we pulled in, I'd have made you turn around and leave." I told her, well, that wouldn't have sent the message that hopefully we did to these individuals that we just serviced, and that they never know where their help's going to come from. So, yeah, you have to rise above sometimes and do some things that you might not feel comfortable with, but at the same time, maintain that sense of professionalism that you have and need to have in order to put yourself in the profession, first and foremost. We take an oath. You will have to, when you graduate from vet school, take an oath to take care of your patients, your animals, and not leave them in situations where they're suffering. But at the same time, you do have to take care of yourselves. I'm not telling anyone here to put yourselves out there in harm's way in any situation where you're not going to come out safe and and healthy. So you'd have to obviously weigh those situations and make sure that you're taking care of self first and foremost, but then take care of the animals in those ways that you're trained to do professionally, and that'll all work out.
And then she also did have a second question. She said, in my opinion, we're seeing a lot of performative allyship statements coming from schools that have pushed out Black students and other students of color, and institutions that have not done anything to center Black voices. How can we hold these schools and institutions accountable for their empty words?
You have to call them with the carpet on them. I mean, if somebody's saying that they're going to do something or doing something, ask them to back it up. I mean, for us, I always remind, we like to use that cliche of putting your money where your mouth is. And, certainly that does speak volumes when you see that institutions, places that you have an interest in or have connections with are putting their resources where they need to be in order to support the things that they're saying that they want to have happen. So as students, your voices are extremely loud and carry a lot of weight in where the universities go with their actions. As faculty members, I can tell you our voices are heard at a different level, and we do have some control over some of the things that we can and do. But when students collectively get together and share their voices and opinions on things, we tend to listen and take action. So I encourage all of you guys out there that are veterinary students, don't be quiet. Certainly speak up, let your voices be heard. Your opinions matter, you matter. So certainly make sure that you take advantage of those opportunities that you have to speak up and let yourselves be heard.
Great response. Rachel asked, what diversity initiatives have had the most impact at North Carolina State University?
For me personally, and for other colleagues that I have surveyed, because again, we do want to know if the things that we're doing are effective in reaching the targeted goals that we have. We have a program called Basic Race Training. It started out as CT Vivian Basic Race Training Program. CT Vivian, for those who don't know, is one of our civil rights activists. He marched with Dr. Martin Luther King back in the day. Well, his son now comes to our university and does this basic race training. It's a 2-day program that we offer that's very expensive. And I say very expensive because it takes about 25 people and it's over 25 grand to do it. About $1,000 a person to participate. And that has had the biggest impact on creating the cultural shift, the change that we had to have happen in order to have our culture and community supportive of bringing in, especially people of color, Black people. We've gotten over, we're probably at about the 200 mark of individuals in our community that have gone through that. We're talking about people who are leaders that can have the effective change that needs to take place on our culture and community. Folks that are given some tools to stand up and speak out when individuals are saying things that are inappropriate. So the CT Vivian Basic Race Program, I give that its highest compliments of support for getting the cultural shift in our community. The other thing that I would mention, and Alexis, you can talk to this one as well, Chelsea, and those of our students who are in the program that have gone through, is our NCBI training. It stands for National Coalition Building Institutes. This is a program that gets individuals to do some self-assessment of their own personal preferences, biases, prejudices, whatever the heck you want to use as your term to call yourself. but it makes you reflect and look at, okay, well, what do I think about, this group or that group, or, when you're talking about different ethnicities, cultures, and um, uh, just things that may set you off when you hear something about someone or a group that they belong to that makes you get a little bit concerned. So this is a program that we'd integrated into our orientation, where the students spend a day basically learning about each other and the different things that they are, and those identities in particular, and learning how those identities affect individuals that are around them. So that's another great program that I highly tout, that has made some difference in giving our, again, students a voice and a opportunity to understand that when somebody makes an inappropriate racial joke or slur or comment, that there is an effective way to speak out and talk to those individuals that are making those comments, to make them aware of the effect that those comments are having on others around them.
Yes, I can definitely attest that training was life-changing for me, and I'm pretty sure for my other classmates that are also in here. I actually still talk about that training till this day with people, and actually like reminisce with my current classmates how that training has really like changed a lot of our perspective of one another, and kind of just bringing out that bias that we might have against other people. It also helps you keep cautious of what you say to others and how hurtful it can be, because not only can racial slurs or anything, just slurs in general, affect us, it can also affect other people, certain things that you say to them. So I also keep an open mind when I say certain things. Alexandria, oh, go ahead, Dr. Cannedy.
Yeah, see Alexandria's question here, how did I start working mainly with small ruminants? Well, it happened for me during my residency training program at NC State. I went there mainly to learn about dairy cattle, because that's what I thought that I was going to go into practice and start doing immediately after I finished my residency. But in the first month that I was there, I saw more goats than I had in my entire career as a intern. I saw some goats at Tuskegee doing my vet school training, but not that many. And I also saw a bunch of llamas. At that point, 1995 was the time they were coming into vogue in North Carolina, which is one of the worst places on the planet for them, really. These animals need nice, cool climates, and it's hot and humid here. So we're seeing a lot of them in for heat stress and parasites and all the other issues. So seeing them in that first month of my residency training program and not knowing much about them, having folks that I was working with that didn't know much about them as well. You see one, you treat one, and next thing you know, folks are starting to call you an expert. So that's how really I got into working with the camelids and the small ruminants. If I had my way and could get away with it and just work on goats, that's all I would do. But again, these llamas and alpacas that are still here, they need medical care and attention too. So, and again, folks tend to treat them more like pets. So again, folks will spend a lot of money on them. So it's a good income source for my practice. I don't mind working with them, but goats are my absolute favorite. Looks like I have Kristen with a question. Let's see, your third year at Cornell and your dean has expressed how difficult it is to attract Black staff and faculty members. The applicant pool is always white and other people of color. What do I think can be done to make schools who lack diversity attract Black faculty and staff? Good question. I can tell you we had that discussion early on when I started my work as a diversity officer for NC State, and initially the response or the comments being made were that, well, there are none out there. So, how can we get, folks of color that, don't really exist to do something that we want them to do? And I dispelled that myth, number one. So you gotta make sure that the folks understand and appreciate that there are plenty of opportunities and I say plenty from the standpoint of numbers in general, for places that really want to attract and get minority faculty. The challenge for them is, can they afford them? That was the challenge for us in North Carolina in particular, because we have a lot of highly qualified, highly skilled, intelligent Black veterinarians and that are specially trained in our Research Triangle Park area. It's just they can earn a whole lot more money than academia would provide them doing things in research and in in other areas out there for them, and in this industry, for example. But at the same time, there are plenty that want to do academia and want to be in academia. So the academic institutions need to look at really, what are you doing to try to attract these individuals? Are you recruiting? And if you are recruiting them into environments where they're going to be successful, where they're going to be happy? Because nobody wants to go anywhere where they're the only one. That's never any fun. So you need to, or the institution needs to make sure that they're not, number one, bringing individuals, especially Black individuals, in environments that are hostile, that people aren't ready for them. We made that mistake at North Carolina State University when we admitted our very first most diverse class in 2004. We brought in a large group of underrepresented minority students into an environment that just was not ready for them. They had to go through some stuff. I'm telling you, it was a lot of bad stuff that we had backlash on. All right, well, what are you bringing these people here? They can't be qualified to be in this position. There's no way that all of these students of color are qualified to be here, kind of attitude. So we had to shift the attitude of the culture to make folks realize that every one of our people that we bring in are equally qualified and deserve to be there, number one. And then that we need to work to make our environment a welcoming environment, to accept them not only for who they are, but for all the other accolades and the benefits that they were bringing to the community for us. So work in that environment to make sure that it is ready for what you're asking for, number one. And then number two, actually making sure that you're reaching out to folks versus just sending a message on a job description that does not show that this is something that someone in particular, a person of color, would even want to consider applying for to be in. So hopefully I've answered some of your points there.
I think we can squeeze in one more question from Chandler, but I did drop your email, Dr. Cannedy, for anybody else that had questions or wanted to speak with you personally.
Sure, perfect.
So Chandler wants to know, do you feel as though it is feasible to open a mobile veterinary practice this day and age? And is there room for new mobile businesses to thrive in vet med?
Yes, I could say that answer yes to both of your questions, and primarily because of what I see through my practice is every day I get at least 2 calls, I'd say, from folks asking for mobile services, but they're usually for small animals. The biggest mistake that I personally made when I started my practice back in 2004 was for my yellow pages in my community, put out an ad, small ruminant and camelid mobile veterinary services is what's the name of my practice. And most of society has no idea what a small ruminant is or a camelid. So what people would see when they would log in, or open the yellow pages, they'd see mobile, small practice, veterinarian. So even to this date, which I killed that ad, pretty much the next year after I took it out, because I got so many referrals, and that's how I personally operate, is strictly on referrals at this point. Although my website, folks will find me by Googling small ruminant veterinarian. But I still get calls, like I said, every day for folks asking, especially for small animal mobile veterinary services. So if anybody's looking to do that, it's a gold mine out there for the taking, for those who are willing to do house calls, especially working on small animals, at least in my area here. Backyard chickens, I will have to say too, that's another huge one. Anybody willing to work with fowl backyard pet chickens in particular, they are out there. I can say that at least 75% of the clients that I work with have chickens, and they ask me questions about them, and all I tell them is all I know about how to cook them and eat them. But that's not what they're looking for. So for anyone that has an interest that's looking to try to build mobile veterinary practice services, the opportunities, at least from my experience and what I see here in North Carolina, are there. But you have the challenges with that as well. You're going to somebody's house where, again, they are sort of king of the hill there versus someone coming to your clinic, and you have to be ready to deal with the risk and the challenges associated with being out in communities that you may be unfamiliar with these days. So be safe is the best thing that I could say there, and certainly take all those measures that you need to make sure that someone knows where you are when you're out there in those backwoods risky situations.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cannedy. That was a great discussion. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we will move on to our second break room. So go ahead and pull up those Zoom links, and we will move on to those next ones. Thank you, Dr. Cannedy. Appreciate you, as always.
Yep. Thanks, Alex.
No problem. Have a good one, everybody.
Have a good weekend.